The 2001 Spanish Grand Prix was the 5th Grand Prix of the season, and one that will go down in history for many reasons, which you'll soon see if you're not already familiar. It may have been early in the championship, but a clear trend was already emerging, and that was that it would be a Ferrari versus McLaren battle for dominance. Okay, I know that Ferrari went on to obliterate the opposition with Schumacher, but I'm trying to build suspense here. Schumacher had 3 podiums and a retirement already, and David Coulthard was on a 6-podium streak carried over from 2000. Once again, the Ferraris and McLarens locked out the top 4 positions on the grid, with Schumacher ahead of Häkkinen, Coulthard and Barrichello, with Ralf Schumacher best of the rest, fresh off the back of his first Grand Prix win. The only other notable qualifying position was that of Jenson Button, who qualified all the way down in 21st behind the Jaguar of De La Rosa. That Benetton was not exactly great that year. The grid order wouldn't stick, however, as David Coulthard stalled at the start of the formation lap, forcing him to the back of the grid. The joint championship leader was in trouble even before the race had started. It's a third knock life, eh, David? Anyway, this is, sadly, the first episode of Random F1 Race Views since the passing of the legendary Murray Walker, who pretty much solely inspired me to do what I do today, so it wouldn't be right for me not to let him call the start of this race in true Murray fashion.
Go, go, go in Spain now! Michael Schumacher gets away, Mika Häkkinen is second behind him, Ruben Barrichello is in third place, Jarno Trulli is challenging.
Rest in peace, Murray, you legend of the sport. Back to the race, Schumacher led away, but watch Barrichello behind as he fights back past both Ralf and Trulli. Frentzen stalled on the line in the other Jordan, but managed to resume the race. Now watch as Bernaldi emerges with wing damage, and crucially so does Coulthard, further damaging his already painful race. He would be forced to pit. Also, look at Montoya go, he made up 5 positions on the first lap. The first retirements came after just a few laps with this collision between Frentzen and De La Rosa. This was actually De La Rosa's first race for Jaguar, replacing Luciano Berti, who had gone to Prost. Surprisingly, there was no safety car. And out goes Bernaldi with a fuel pressure problem. Down the back of the field, Giancarlo Fisichella was being hounded by his future teammate Fernando Alonso. Listen to this.
We're seeing a lot of Alonso, we're going to see a lot of this young man in the future too.
You don't know the half of it, Murray. 20 years later and he's still a young driver. Up the front, Schumacher and Häkkinen were running away from the field, and a battle was emerging for 5th. Juan Pablo Montoya, who had failed to finish each of his first 4 races, one of those due to an orange buffoon, and for once I don't mean Trump, was on the back of Trulli's Jordan and was keen to show what he could do. This quickly became the battle for 4th place when Ralf Schumacher had a braking problem and spun out, beaching his car in the gravel. It was an unfortunate end to the race of a driver who had won his first Grand Prix only last time out. In anticipation of a safety car which never came, both Trulli and Montoya pitted, and they switched places as Williams demonstrated their famous pit lane prowess. Montoya had gained 2 places in just 1 lap.
In the Benetton, about to be engulfed by Michael Schumacher, race leader.
So, Formula 1? Right, now for the boring stuff. Pit strategy. 2-stop strategies were seemingly in order for this race. Schumacher pitted first of the front runners, followed by Villeneuve from 6th, then it was Barrichello from 3rd, and Häkkinen. Häkkinen required less fuel than Schumacher, so Schumacher had to push on track to keep the lead, but Häkkinen's fuel hose stuck slightly, and he extended the lead, and blah 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 blah. All you've got to know is that with one set of pit stops down, the order is pretty much the same as it was before. Got that? Good.
There was a media frenzy after the first 2 races of the year, which were commandingly won by Schumacher in the Ferrari, and the gist of their message was, oh, what a dull season it's going to be because Ferrari and Michael Schumacher are going to be unbeatable. Well, David Coulthard proved them wrong with that brilliant win in Brazil, and then his brother Ralf proved them wrong with that brilliant win at the San Marino Grand Prix in Italy. And then the media were saying, oh, it's all up for Ferrari, they're over the hill.
F1 media really doesn't change, does it? You could just as easily apply that to many of the media frenzies that still take place today. Wise words from Murray there to dispel that pessimism. Jenson Button was continuing to struggle, running well outside of the top 10 and not getting anywhere near the points. The 2001 Benetton was probably the worst ever car produced by that team, and they probably would have continued to flounder if it wasn't for the Renault takeover in 2002. It was interesting that most of Benetton's issues in 2001 came in the first half of the season, as the team had traditionally started seasons well, scoring 3 podiums in the first half of 2000 to prove my point. There was almost a repeat of Brazil as Montoya saw a car wiggling towards his gearbox in a braking zone, but luckily they both got away with it and Coulthard came into the pits. Talking of pit stops, I haven't been showing them all, but at this point in the race, most drivers had made 2 stops, except Häkkinen, who had the lead as a result. Suddenly, drama! Rubens Barrichello from 3rd place developed a puncture and went for a bouncercello across the gravel. The team replaced the tyre, but it turned out that the off had damaged his suspension and he was forced to retire. Brazili out. This put Juan Pablo Montoya up to 3rd and gave him a sniff at his first F1 podium. Remember, this was just Juan's 5th Grand Prix. Imagine how that must have felt. Also out of the race was Eddie Irvine, whose Jaguar became a Jaguant. Finally, Mika Häkkinen came in for his 2nd stop. He'd put in a mega middle stint to extend his lead despite being on relatively heavy fuel, and it meant he was able to have a very quick pit stop. It was going to be close between him and Schumacher on pit exit, but Schumacher had to lap Jos Verstappen and Mika maintained the lead. This was the turning point in this race as McLaren suddenly had the upper hand. Further hope for McLaren came when Coulthard unlapped himself to Schumacher, freeing him to attack Heidfeld for 6th place, which he achieved with a brilliant overtake that utilised the slipstream of Button's Benetton. What a comeback he was demonstrating! Meanwhile, Michael Schumacher had been dropping back, seemingly nursing his car home. Mika Häkkinen, on the other hand, was driving an inspired race. He was leading, he had lapped every other car except for Michael Schumacher, and he was surely going to win this race. Wait. No. Oh my goodness, Mika Häkkinen, who had not made a single mistake all race, was slowing down on the very last lap. The saddest possible thing that can happen to a driver in Formula 1 happened in front of millions of live viewers. Michael Schumacher took the lead, and Mika Häkkinen was speechless. What a way to end the Spanish Grand Prix. Schumacher won, Juan Pablo Montoya got his first F1 podium in 2nd, and Jacques Villeneuve had a strong 3rd. We all knew, however, that a man had just been robbed. Guys, before I give this race a score, I want to let you know that I have a Daily Motion account for all the races that get taken down from my YouTube channel by the pesky FOM bots. Due to the high levels of parody, review and education my videos contain, as well as the short lengths of the clips I use, I believe that all of my videos fall under fair use, but sadly this isn't always enough. On my Daily Motion account, you can find the 1996 Monaco and Portuguese Grand Prix, as well as any other video that may end up being taken down from my YouTube channel. The link is in the description. Thank you. I gave the Grand Prix a 6.7 out of 10 overall, because while the incidents for Häkkinen, Coulthard, Barrichello and Ralf Schumacher kept it very unpredictable, the Spanish Grand Prix just never really produces much good on-track action in my opinion, and this race was no exception. It's still definitely worth a watch though. I've put the championship implication stat quite high, as it was a key race in the McLaren versus Ferrari battle of 2001, which began the swing in the direction of the prancing horse. I'll give the Driver of the Day award for Best Driver to Juan Pablo Montoya, because finishing 2nd in just your 5th Grand Prix is an impressive feat at the best of times, but from 12th on the grid, not bad at all. No one really stood out to me for the Inouye Trophy for Worst Driver, so I'll give it to Tasso Marquez, who just wasn't very fast. Drive safe guys, and I'll see you next time.